Welcome back to the Engineered Angler. You remember last week we actually designed and made this little swim bait with 3 body parts and the flashing red gills. We took it to the lake and tested it in the water. Let's go look at that footage.
I like to start slow with swim baits. It usually reveals a little more about the action. And here I'm seeing a little more roll in the body than I really want. A little faster and it starts looking a little more fluid. It's still showing a little bit of roll. You can see it if you watch that top fin. It kind of rolls more than you really want it to. I think that's a tie-on-eye issue.
So you can see there is a slight performance issue we want to solve. That little bit of roll that we're seeing on the body as it's swimming. The swimming action is pretty nice. And I think that the energy it's using in that roll is keeping the lure from swimming really nicely at very slow speeds, which is something I'd like to enhance. What we also did last week was to make a temporary mold so that we can make multiple parts and tweak the design as we went along. And because there's one other part of the way I assembled this thing that I really am not too happy with, the position of the hardware on this hinge is slightly off. It's a little bit too high. You can see this part of the body kind of sticks up a little bit too much.
So I went ahead and mixed up some casting resin and poured just the one piece. It's what's nice about having a temporary mold.
And now that piece should be ready. There it is. All I need to do now is pull the hinge pin out of it, clean it up a little bit, and I'll show you how I get those positioned a little more precisely in a little bit. First, let's talk about fixing that roll on this thing. I think the problem is the position of the tie-on-eye. It's either a little bit too high or a little bit too low. Let's take a look at the original drawing and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Right now, our tie-on-eye is sticking out almost perfectly straight out, maybe slightly above horizontal. If I draw a line from the center of the tail, essentially where we presume the water is going to be leaving the lure, as it's being pulled through the water, that line should actually divide the lure in equal areas. And it's really hard to tell when you have a lure that isn't symmetrical. If you have a lure that's perfectly symmetrical, which this almost is, then the choice is easy. You place your eye right at the center of symmetry, which is essentially the center line of the lure. But with something like this, where it's a more organic shape, you've got to figure out a way to know where to put this to have the same amount of area above that line as you do below it. In other words, the total area on the surface. This is a good way to get close to being perfect. You can do this on CAD if you have a good CAD program that will calculate this for you. When you're doing it by hand, you can just pull a string, in this case I'm just pulling a wire, from the point on the tail to somewhere on the nose where you can eyeball an equal amount of area, top and bottom. It's not that easy to do when you're looking at the whole lure. I came up with a little technique where I divide the lure up into stations, starting at the nose, ending at the back of the actual hard body. I'm not taking into consideration the little tail. And I divide it up into 8 or 10 or 12 sections, depending on how much work you want to do here. And I'll take a measurement at each one of these segments inside the body and mark where the center is. And do that everywhere. And I'm just eyeballing the center here. It'll come down here. It'll be slightly higher here, a little bit higher here, and then start coming down. So you end up with a curve that sort of follows the shape of the lure and takes into account that asymmetric shape that you have here. Then if we pull the string, we just have to look at the area between this green line, the curved center line, and our string. And you can see everything is below there. So I would want to have it equalized, something like that on this lure. So according to our drawing here,
and this drawing is not exactly like our lure,
our tie-on-eye should be just below, right on that lower lip. So I went ahead and made 2 other heads. One with the eye on the upper lip and one with it on the lower lip. So let's get back on the lake and see if we can actually solve this problem. All right, I'm gonna pull the original head off of this thing. And I don't know which one to do first. All right, why don't you guys pause for a second and go down to the comments and tell me which one you think is going to work best. The high one or the low one. And we'll make sure it's got good action there. Like the blue eyes is the high one, and the green eyes is going to be the low one. All right, let's go ahead and get some underwater shots.
And while I was preparing and the boat was drifting a bit, I didn't notice that my rod did this.
Glad the water's clear and shallow, because I dropped the rod in the water with the doggone lure on it. I just gotta get down there and grab the line. Ugh. Oh, the lure's stuck. Oh. Oh.
And after getting the lure free, I had to give it a quick little test. It's looking pretty good.
Even in slow motion.
I decided to start with the one with the low tie-on-eye. And after a few attempts to get some footage, it was pretty obvious that the best angle was going to be an angle from behind. So that's what you're going to see from here on. And you can see it has a nice swim, but if you look closely, it has that wide sweep with that upper fin. It rocks back and forth, or rolls back and forth. Even the head rolls a little bit. Let's take a look at the other one. I think that even at a normal speed, this looks a little more stable. It's a little more vertical up and down, and there's a little bit less sweep of that upper fin. There's not as much roll, at least to my eye. This is definitely an improvement. But let's see what it looks like at half speed. Now it looks like it's rocking a lot more. It's rolling more than I thought it was. But I don't think we're going to actually be able to tell the difference until we put them side by side. Even though I'm kind of leaning towards this one. The one on the left is the one with the high tie, and the one on the right is the one with the low tie. The left one is the one I think is a little more stable. And now I see them side by side. I think I'm right about that. I think they both look pretty good, but the one on the left is definitely just a little more stable.
All right, so you gotta admit, even though it was a subtle difference, there was definitely a difference in the way this thing moved. So that means that a lure that's swimming nice and straight and level is going to start to swim at a slower speed than one that is using a lot of energy sort of rolling back and forth. That's why it matters to me as a lure designer, and as a fisherman, I also like to know that I can roll my lure as slow as I want to and still get a nice swim action. All right, let's move on to the next thing, because what we're doing here is perfecting this design. The idea is to get it all just right before we make a really good, permanent, long-lasting silicone mold that I can make dozens and dozens of these out of. So I'm going to make a few other refinements to this. I'll show you what I'm going to do. I'm going to flare out the gills on the head, improve the alignment on this link, and lastly, I'm going to take this over into the shop and pull on it until something breaks. Because I always get the question, is that thing going to hold up to big fish? So to be able to mark inside here where the center of these slots are, I'm going to go ahead, put a piece of tape on this, line it up really accurately with the edge. I'm going to mark with a pen where the slots are, and then trace the outer edge of the inside of the face of that 45-degree cut. Pull that off, make sure we got the right side up, then line up our tracing, and I'm just cutting away the excess tape. And with the tape in place, I can mark the center of the slot, and it's easy enough to double check if I need to. And I'll poke a little hole just so the bit has something to grab right away. And now we're ready to drill, and I'm going to do what everybody hates to watch me do, which is hold something in my hand while I drill it. And then I'll just put the hook eyes in there just to try it out, make sure I've got it right. And you can see they line up perfectly and aren't going to create any undue friction. So I'm happy with that fix. So that means this piece is ready for the mold. The only part I plan to pull apart is the head from the sort of shoulder part of the lure, or the second piece. And the reason for that is that this piece has the least amount of material holding this hinge pin in The failure mode is going to be this bursting. It won't likely be the pin coming out through the head because that's much thicker and has a lot more material. And it's not likely to be this hinge pulling out from here because again, we have a lot more material. We have 3 pieces and the hole is far enough back that it definitely makes it stronger than what we got here. And of course, the tail section is the same deal. We got a lot more meat there. So we're going to be pulling these 2 pieces apart to see what the breaking strength actually is. And that's really where kind of like the contentious point. We can get numbers. We can get a load that this thing will fail at. But the question is, what is enough? How strong does it have to be? If you're one of those guys who's fishing for tarpon with 15-pound braid, catch an 80-pound tarpon with it, then maybe 35 pounds of strength in your lure is enough. But if you're trolling for giant muskie or something and you're getting those big hits initially, maybe you need a little more. So the answer to how strong does it need to be is really going to be up to the fisherman and what he's doing with it. For me, I'm not likely to catch anything much bigger than 25 to 30 pounds in salt water. And I don't fish with anything greater than 15 to 20 pound braid. I'm going to say if this can handle 40 pounds, that's plenty. If it can handle 60 pounds, then I've got lots of insurance. If it can't handle 40 pounds and it's much less than that, we'll have to consider a redesign.
I wanted to add flaring gills on this head, and I meant to do it all along, but it was a little tough with the original wood. So I added some epoxy putty and laid it in there in a thin coat, enough to flare it out. Now I need to take some off, and you can see how it's more triangular now. So I'm using the Dremel to clean it up a little bit and have it more flared than just a blocky look. After the rough shaping, I sanded it smooth with some 150 grit sandpaper. Then I drilled in some eye sockets. I like them high on the head, but this is a small head, so it's a small eye socket for small eyes.
Here's the difference between the new one, the flared one, and the original. You can see it flares out quite a bit. I didn't want to do any more than that because first I didn't want to have to open up this gap too much to allow for this thing to rotate, and I didn't want to run the risk of having it change the swimming action. And that's the final look. You can see the flared out section. And it still has a nice fluid swimming action, and the head doesn't bind up or anything. So now we're ready to test the strength. Let's prepare these 2 pieces, one of the heads and the second body piece. And I'm gonna go ahead and drill holes in these things so I can fasten them on that rig out there. And we'll do the same with the head. And I'm gonna use this 125 pound braid, and I'll just tie this into a loop. And I'm going to use a pin that goes all the way through and then some. I don't want any question that we got the entire area, the whole load surface right there. All right, let's see what it takes to pull this thing apart. All right, but before we take this thing out there and break it, let's get another prediction. Go ahead and go down in the comments and put down your prediction of where this is going to actually break. I think somewhere along the lines I said 40 pounds would be acceptable to me. I'm going to stick with that. Let's go find out what the truth is. I want to get a bungee on this thing and get it rigged up. And I'll get back to you when we're ready to break this. All right, I've got it set up. I've got a bungee cord on here. It's above the crane scale, so it's not going to register anything, but it'll keep it all from flying around too much. I'm going to bump it up just a little bit just to get it into position. And then check the scale. Re-zero it, and let's go. Ooh. One nice thing is that both of the little lobes broke off from this piece at the same time, so that's a good sign that the build was nice and uniform. And you can see the hinge pin has a nice little bend in it. All right, I just had a chance to take a look at the footage, and isolate the moment where it had the highest load. It was 37 pounds, and I'm pretty happy with that. Can't say I could expect too much more out of this tiny amount of surface area here we were relying on to carry the load. 37 pounds is pretty good. I would like it a little higher than that without having to make this thing bulky. So we're going to experiment a little bit with some carbon fiber reinforcement on one of these things. But that won't be for this video. We're going to have to put that off for another time. In the meantime, if you're enjoying this kind of stuff, leave me a thumbs up and let me know what you think of the breaking strength of this. Is it way too light for what you do, or will it work? Do you think, like I think, it's good enough for the kind of fishing I do? At any rate, next time you see this lure, we're going to have a permanent silicone mold, and we're going to cast a couple of these guys, and we'll get a good paint job on at least one of them and get out and do some fishing. All that on the next one. I'll see you guys next video.
And if you're jonesing to see a full lure build, this is the video to watch next.